Are they really your friend, or just giving you enough to keep you close? Some people don't completely walk away. They linger. They give you just a little bit of attention, a little bit of care, a small dose of affection to make sure you never fully move on. They text when they need something, call when they feel lonely, and vanish the second you expect more from them. That's not friendship. That's not care. That's control. It's manipulation in disguise. And if you don't recognize it for what it is, you'll keep chasing crumbs while they enjoy the entire feast. Breadcrumbing is when someone gives you the illusion of connection without any real substance. They'll make you believe you're important, just enough to keep you waiting, to keep you checking your phone, to keep you emotionally hooked. It's emotional inconsistency designed to make you dependent on their sporadic attention. And when you start asking yourself, maybe I'm asking for too much, you've already started losing yourself in their game. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for the bare minimum: honesty, consistency, effort. Real relationships require investment, not breadcrumbs. People who breadcrumb others feed off the control they have over your emotions. They love knowing they can come and go as they please while you stay right there, hoping they'll finally give you what you deserve. But they never do, because their goal isn't connection, it's power. They want to feel wanted without ever having to give in return. That's not love. That's insecurity wrapped in charm. Their inconsistency isn't a reflection of your worth. It's proof of their emotional immaturity. Stop analyzing their behavior. Stop making excuses for it. You don't need to understand why they do it. You need to understand that you deserve better than being someone's backup plan. The second you start setting boundaries, everything changes. You stop replying to the late-night texts. You stop accepting the half-hearted apologies. You stop showing up for people who only remember you when it's convenient for them. And here's what happens. They either step up or they disappear. But either way, you win. Because boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about protecting your peace. When you demand consistency, the wrong people will leave, and the right ones will rise to meet your standards. That's not a loss. That's clarity. You reach a point where you stop chasing anyone. You stop proving your worth. You start choosing yourself. You start choosing peace over attention, truth over empty words, effort over excuses. Because once you value your time and energy, you stop settling for anything that drains it. And that's when your mindset becomes unbreakable. When you stop accepting crumbs, you stop living small. You rise above manipulation and stand firm in self-respect. Emotional strength doesn't mean you don't care. It means you recognize sooner who's worth your care. Are they really your friend, or are they just giving you enough to keep you attached? Some people never fully disappear. They linger in your life, giving you just enough attention to remind you they exist, but never enough to make you feel valued. They pop in with a message when they're bored, a call when they need validation, or a kind word right when you're about to let go. It's not random, it's intentional. They know exactly how much to give to keep you on the hook. It feels like connection, but it's not. It's control. And the longer you tolerate it, the more they condition you to accept less than you deserve. Breadcrumbing is one of the most subtle and dangerous forms of emotional manipulation because it hides under the mask of staying in touch or keeping things casual. It's when someone gives you fragments of attention, a text here, a compliment there, a sudden show of interest, just enough to keep your hope alive. But hope, when misplaced, becomes a trap. You start waiting for them to be who they pretend to be, but they never are. They'll tell you what you want to hear, give you glimpses of what you crave, and then vanish again. That inconsistency leaves you anxious, confused, and questioning your own worth. You start to believe the problem is you, that you're asking for too much, but you're not. You're asking for honesty, clarity, and effort, the foundation of any real relationship, whether it's friendship, love, or partnership. People who breadcrumb others crave power, not partnership. They thrive on the feeling of being desired, but they fear true connection because connection requires accountability. They want to be in control of your attention, your emotions, your expectations. So they dangle affection like a reward, pulling it away just when you start to expect more. It's a pattern rooted in insecurity. They need to feel wanted because they don't feel worthy. But here's the truth. Their inconsistency says nothing about you. It reveals everything about them. Their behavior is not a reflection of your value. It's evidence of their emotional immaturity. You can't fix someone's inconsistency by being more patient or more understanding. You can't earn someone's respect by tolerating disrespect. When you start recognizing this behavior for what it is, you stop personalizing it. You stop wondering what you did wrong and start realizing what you've been accepting. The moment you understand that their attention is a tool of control, you begin to regain your power. You stop chasing the moments they give you and start seeing the gaps they leave. You stop waiting for them to change and start changing how you respond. And here's where everything shifts. When you set a boundary, the first time you choose not to reply to that late-night message, when you stop making excuses for their silence, when you stop rearranging your life for someone who only shows up when it suits them, that's when you begin to take your power back. Boundaries don't push people away. They reveal who was never meant to stay. The moment you decide that your peace matters more than their inconsistent attention, you'll notice something. They'll either rise to meet your standards or disappear altogether. And if they disappear, let them. Because their absence creates the space for people who are capable of showing up fully. Raising your standards isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. It's about understanding that not everyone deserves access to your energy. You don't need to keep proving your worth to anyone. You don't need to chase validation. You are not difficult to love. You're just asking the wrong people for the right things. And when you stop doing that, your life changes. You stop investing in people who drain you, and you start aligning with people who value you. You stop confusing attention with affection and comfort with connection. The truth is, when you stop accepting breadcrumbs, you stop living on emotional scraps. You start feeding yourself with self-respect, self-awareness, and strength. You begin to understand that peace is more valuable than presence. You no longer measure your worth by how often someone calls or texts. You measure it by how well you honor your boundaries, protect your peace, and demand mutual effort. That's when your mindset becomes unbreakable. When you realize that silence is an answer, effort is a language, and inconsistency is a decision. So if you've been questioning someone's intentions, stop listening to their words and start watching their patterns. Consistency reveals character. Anyone can say the right thing, but it's their follow-through that tells the truth. Stop falling for potential. Stop waiting for people to get better. Start paying attention to how they treat you now, because how they act when it doesn't benefit them is who they truly are. When you choose yourself, when you decide you're done chasing crumbs, you stop giving your power away. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into half-hearted connections. You become grounded, confident, and emotionally intelligent. You no longer react to manipulation. You recognize it and walk away. And that's when everything changes. Not because others suddenly respect you, but because you finally respect yourself. Understand the psychology. When someone breadcrumbs you, understand this. It's never really about you. It's about them. Their behavior is a mirror of their internal chaos, not a reflection of your worth. People who breadcrumb others are driven by an insecurity so deep they can't face true intimacy. They crave validation like oxygen, but fear the vulnerability that comes with genuine connection. They want to feel wanted, but they don't want to give. They want to be admired, but they don't want to commit. And that constant push and pull, it's their way of maintaining control. See, breadcrumbing is not random. It's calculated inconsistency. It's the art of giving you just enough to keep you emotionally invested, but not enough for you to feel fulfilled. They've learned that if they show up once in a while, send a sweet text, make a flattering comment, act interested just when you're about to move on, they can reset your hope. And every time you fall for it, they regain power. Because that's what this is really about. Power. They keep you hanging, waiting, questioning, while they never have to do the work of being accountable. When someone treats you this way, it triggers a psychological cycle that's hard to break. You start to anticipate the next time they'll show up. You hold on to every small gesture, every nice word, as proof that maybe, just maybe, they care. You build a story in your mind that says, If I stay patient, if I prove I'm loyal, maybe they'll finally see my worth. But that's not how this works. They already see your worth. That's why they breadcrumb you. Because deep down, they know they don't deserve the access you've given them, yet they can't stand to lose it. They want your attention, but not your depth. They want your time, but not your truth. This behavior comes from emotional immaturity and fear. Some people are addicted to attention. They feel powerful knowing someone is always waiting for them. It gives them a false sense of importance. But the moment you demand consistency, the moment you ask for clarity, they retreat. Because consistency requires effort. Clarity demands honesty. And both of those threaten the illusion of control they've built. That's why they keep things vague. That's why their messages are inconsistent, their promises hollow. Because as long as you're uncertain, they remain in charge. But here's what most people don't realize. Their behavior is not a reflection of your inadequacy. It's a reflection of their insecurity. The very thing they fear most, being rejected or exposed, is what drives their manipulation. They breadcrumb you to avoid vulnerability. They'd rather control your perception than risk rejection. So instead of being open, they withhold. Instead of being present, they perform. And in that act, they reveal everything you need to know. You must learn to detach from their inconsistency. The more you chase an explanation, the more power you give away. Because breadcrumbing thrives on confusion. It keeps you guessing, doubting, hoping. And every moment you spend analyzing their actions is a moment stolen from your peace. The truth is simple. People who genuinely value you don't keep you in emotional limbo. They don't leave you wondering where you stand. They make you feel safe, respected, and seen. You don't have to question their intentions because their actions speak for them. Once you understand the psychology behind breadcrumbing, you stop internalizing it. You stop saying, maybe I'm too much, and start realizing they're giving too little. You stop trying to decode their mixed signals and start recognizing their emotional limitations. Because that's all breadcrumbing is, limited emotional capacity disguised as mystery. They don't know how to build something real, so they settle for control. And control is a poor substitute for connection. Don't let their inconsistency become your standard. Don't let their lack of effort define your expectations. When you stop reacting to their crumbs, you break the cycle. You take back the power they've been feeding off. Because the moment you stop waiting for their approval, their manipulation loses its grip. The power was never theirs, it was always yours. They just used your empathy, your hope, your patience against you. But once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Once you understand it, you can't fall for it again. So the next time someone gives you just enough to keep you interested, but never enough to make you feel secure, step back. Observe. Don't chase the crumbs. Look at the pattern. Ask yourself, what do I gain from staying in confusion? Because clarity doesn't come from them changing. It comes from you choosing to see the truth. And once you see the truth, the illusion of control shatters. You begin to understand that the problem was never your expectations. It was their lack of integrity. And that realization is where your strength begins to grow. Set the boundary. Setting a boundary isn't about cutting people off. It's about cutting off the behaviors that drain you. It's about saying, I will no longer participate in my own exhaustion. Because every time you tolerate inconsistency, every time you accept half effort, you teach people how to treat you. The moment you decide that your peace matters more than their convenience, that's the moment everything starts to change. Boundaries are not about being hard or cold, they're about being clear. They are a declaration of self-respect, a line that says, this is where I end, and this is where you begin. When someone keeps giving you crumbs, stop pretending it's a meal. You can't keep feeding on half effort and call it loyalty. You can't keep accepting broken promises and call it forgiveness. The truth is, every time you accept less than you deserve, you train yourself to believe that's all you'll ever get. But the moment you set that line, the moment you say, no more halfway energy, no more on and off behavior, no more empty words, you reclaim your power. Because boundaries are not punishment. They are protection. Protection for your time, your energy, your emotional well-being. And yes, when you start setting boundaries, you will lose people. You'll lose the ones who were only comfortable when you were available on their terms. You'll lose the ones who loved your silence, but not your strength. You'll lose the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries. But understand this. When you lose people who can't meet your standards, that's not loss, that's alignment. You're simply creating space for people who respect effort, honesty, and presence. You're building a life that supports your peace, not your chaos. When you set a boundary, it's not about confrontation. It's about clarity. You're no longer willing to live in confusion. You're not seeking revenge, you're seeking peace. And peace doesn't come from pleasing others. It comes from honoring yourself. It comes from saying, I am no longer emotionally available for uncertainty. You start responding differently. You stop replying to messages that only come when they need something. You stop engaging in conversations that go nowhere. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. That's not being harsh. That's being healthy. The hardest part about setting boundaries isn't drawing the line, it's keeping it. Because the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will test them. They'll call you distant. They'll say you've changed. They'll try to guilt you back into the role that served them. But you have to remember why you started. You didn't draw that line to hurt anyone. You drew it to heal yourself. You created it because your peace was being negotiated too cheaply. And when your peace becomes non-negotiable, you start living differently. You walk lighter. You breathe easier. You no longer wait for others to choose you because you've already chosen yourself. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care with discernment. It means you no longer confuse access with affection. It means not everyone gets a front row seat to your energy, your heart, or your time. You can love people deeply and still keep your distance. You can wish someone well and still decide they don't belong in your daily life. Boundaries are not walls, they're gates. And you control who gets through. You decide who earns the right to stay. That's emotional maturity, knowing you can care for people without allowing them to consume you. And here's the truth, when you finally start enforcing boundaries, the wrong people will fall away naturally. You won't have to argue. You won't have to justify. Their behavior will reveal their intentions. The ones who were never willing to give real effort will simply fade out because they no longer benefit from your emotional availability. And while that might feel lonely at first, it's actually freedom. You are no longer waiting for inconsistent people to validate you. You are no longer depending on their crumbs to feel whole. You've shifted the power dynamic. Now you decide who gets your time. Boundaries change everything because they separate what you tolerate from what you deserve. They transform relationships built on convenience into relationships built on respect. They make you see who truly values you and who only valued what you could give them. And the more consistent you become in protecting your peace, the more life starts aligning with your standards. You start attracting people who match your energy, people who don't flinch at effort, who don't vanish when things get real. Because healthy people are not intimidated by boundaries. They're drawn to them. Boundaries communicate that you value yourself, and those who are capable of valuing you will respect that. So, when you draw that line, stand by it. You'll notice that silence will speak louder than any argument ever could. Your absence from spaces that drained you will do more for your healing than any apology they could offer. When you stop engaging with low effort, the noise fades and clarity sets in. You start to see who's really there for you and who was just there for what you could give. And in that clarity, you rediscover your strength, the kind of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't fight, doesn't chase. It simply stands firm. Because when you set boundaries, you're not being selfish. You're being self-aware. You're saying, I deserve peace. I deserve consistency. I deserve effort. And that kind of energy, the kind that refuses to settle for less, becomes magnetic. It changes how you move, how you speak, and how you show up in every area of your life. It's not arrogance. It's alignment. You're no longer matching energy. You're maintaining standards. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You're choosing yourself, fully, unapologetically, and without hesitation. Build an unbreakable mindset. When you stop accepting crumbs, you start realizing just how powerful you really are. You see, the strength you've been looking for doesn't come from the approval of others. It comes from the moment you stop needing it. Building an unbreakable mindset means shifting your focus from chasing validation to standing firm in your own value. It's about understanding that peace is not something people give you, it's something you protect. When you develop that kind of mindset, no one can manipulate you with inconsistency because you've learned to recognize the pattern and detach before it drains you. You have to reach a point where you no longer get excited by half-effort, where you no longer confuse attention for affection or apologies for change, because people will always reveal their intentions through consistency, not their words. When you develop inner strength, you stop reacting to surface-level gestures and start seeing the deeper truth. You understand that not everyone who reaches out deserves a response. Not everyone who wants access deserves your time. You can still be kind, but you learn to be selective. You can be compassionate, but you also become cautious with your energy. That's not coldness, that's wisdom. An unbreakable mindset is not about becoming emotionless. It's about mastering your emotions instead of being mastered by them. It's the ability to feel disappointment, betrayal, and hurt, yet still not let them define how you move forward. You stop taking things personally because you understand that people act according to their level of awareness, not your worth. You realize that sometimes distance is not rejection, it's protection. Sometimes silence is not weakness, it's control. That is where true confidence is born, in the space where you learn that your power lies not in reacting, but in choosing how to respond. Building mental strength requires discipline. The discipline to not entertain what disrupts your peace. The discipline to walk away even when you want to stay. The discipline to prioritize growth over comfort. It's about reprogramming how you think, how you talk to yourself, how you perceive challenges. Every time you choose peace over chaos, every time you choose standards over sympathy, you're training your mind to stand firm. You're rewiring yourself to operate from strength, not scarcity. And once that shift happens, you stop seeking closure from others because you've learned how to give it to yourself. The truth is, people will always test you. Life will always challenge you. But when your mindset is unbreakable, you no longer crumble when others disappoint you. You no longer question your value because someone failed to see it. You don't chase what walks away, and you don't beg what stays halfway. You've learned that your peace is too expensive to be negotiated with anyone's uncertainty. You learn to let go without resentment, to move on without explanations. That's real power, not the loud kind, but the kind that's calm, quiet, and steady. You must start seeing rejection differently, not as loss, but as redirection. Every time someone exits your life, it's not proof that you're unworthy. It's evidence that you're evolving. You're outgrowing what was never meant for you. You stop seeing people's inconsistency as personal attacks and start viewing them as lessons. Lessons about what you need, what you value, and what you will no longer tolerate. That's the mindset that frees you. Because when you learn to see the purpose in pain, you no longer carry resentment. You carry wisdom. An unbreakable mindset doesn't come from avoiding hardship. It comes from walking through it and coming out stronger. It's built in the moments you were overlooked but still showed up. It's built when you were disappointed but refused to give up on yourself. It's built when you stayed true to your values, even when it cost you people, comfort, or control. Strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about how steady you can stand when life hits you. It's about remaining grounded in who you are, even when everything around you is uncertain. When you reach this place mentally, you stop needing to prove yourself. You stop explaining why you walked away, why you didn't respond, why you chose peace. You just do it, because you no longer owe your energy to confusion. You no longer need permission to protect yourself. You start realizing that inner peace is not a reward. It's a responsibility, and when you protect it, you become untouchable. Not because life gets easier, but because you've learned to remain steady no matter what happens. That's what it means to build an unbreakable mindset. To know your worth so deeply that no inconsistency, no rejection, and no manipulation can shake your foundation. You don't harden your heart, you strengthen your mind. You don't shut down, you rise above. You stay open, but never unguarded. You give, but never at the expense of yourself. And through that balance, you discover the kind of strength that no one can take from you. The strength that comes from within. You don't need breadcrumbs when you know your worth. You don't need to chase people to feel seen or beg for love to feel valued. Because when you finally understand who you are, what you bring, what you deserve, you stop settling for fragments of connection. You start craving something deeper, something genuine, something that reflects the love and effort you give. The moment you realize your worth, you stop asking, "Why don't they care?" and start asking, "Why am I still allowing this?" That's the moment everything shifts, from confusion to clarity, from weakness to wisdom. You deserve presence, not promises. You deserve people who show up, not people who check in when it's convenient. You deserve consistency, not confusion. And when you start believing that, your entire world begins to align with it. The way you walk changes. The way you speak changes. The energy you attract changes, because people can feel it. When you've stopped negotiating your worth, when you've stopped settling for almost, when you've stopped explaining why you're walking away from anything that doesn't feel real. Let's be honest. Walking away isn't easy. It hurts to let go of the people you cared about, even when they couldn't meet you halfway. It hurts to close the door on relationships that once felt like home. But here's the truth. Peace always costs something. And sometimes the price is comfort. Sometimes the price is familiarity. But when you choose peace, you never lose. You gain yourself back. You gain your self-respect, your time, your clarity. And those things, they are priceless. When you stop feeding on crumbs, you stop starving your soul. You stop waiting for others to fill what you can already give yourself. Because the love you've been searching for, that validation, that reassurance, that feeling of being enough, it's not something people give you. It's something you build within. And once you build it, you never chase it again. You stop asking people to treat you right, because you simply no longer allow anyone who doesn't. You don't beg for love, you attract it, effortlessly, silently, powerfully, because your energy becomes a reflection of self-worth, not self-doubt. You see, the most powerful thing you can do is stop explaining why you deserve respect. Stop trying to convince people to care. Stop fighting for the bare minimum. When you demand nothing less than authenticity, you filter out everything fake. You stop entertaining inconsistency. You stop settling for almost. And that's when you start living from a place of truth, your truth. The kind that doesn't need validation, doesn't need approval, doesn't need to prove anything. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's sacred. Guarding your energy doesn't make you cold. It makes you conscious. When you protect your peace, you begin to understand that not every reaction deserves your energy. Not every argument deserves your attention. And not every apology deserves your acceptance. You start responding with silence instead of emotion. You start choosing stillness instead of chaos. You start understanding that strength isn't about how loud you can be. It's about how quietly you can walk away from what no longer serves you. When you know your worth, your energy changes, and so does your circle. You stop attracting chaos because chaos no longer feels familiar. You stop attracting unavailable people because you're no longer emotionally unavailable to yourself. You stop craving validation because you've already validated your own existence. That's what it means to evolve. You rise above the noise, above the games, above the need to prove anything to anyone. You don't chase, you don't beg. You attract through calm confidence, through grounded strength, through presence. And one day, you'll look back and realize that losing those who couldn't meet your effort was never the loss you thought it was. It was the beginning of your power. The moment you stopped settling for breadcrumbs was the moment you became whole. Because you stopped waiting for someone else to give you what you always had inside: self-worth, strength, and peace. Protect your peace, guard your energy, and remember this: love that is meant for you will never have to be begged for. It will show up It will stay, and it will match your effort with the same kind of honesty and presence you give so freely. That's what you deserve. And that's the standard you should never lower again. This is where peace begins. Not when others change, but when you do. When you stop chasing crumbs and start walking in your worth. When you stop proving and start becoming. When you finally understand that the strongest thing you'll ever do is choose yourself.